You may have found yourself at some point sitting in a meeting, one of those windowless conference rooms that seems to exist in a completely different time zone than the rest of the world. And you realize that despite everyone nodding intently, absolutely nothing has been said. You look around at your colleagues, they're taking notes, they're using words like synergy and alignment and optimization. And all of a sudden, you have this creeping sensation. I think everyone's speaking a dialect that only exists within these four walls. If you've ever felt that way, don't worry, you're not alone. And you're not losing your grip on reality. You're experiencing the effects of corporate speak. Now, language has traditionally been a tool for transparency. It's how we connect, it's how we share ideas, it's how we build trust. But in modern corporate culture, something really weird has happened. Language has been hijacked. It's no longer used to illuminate truth. It's being used as a linguistic mask. It's a cloak designed to hide inefficiency, instability, and exploitation behind a veil of very professional sounding nonsense. So today we're going to perform some linguistic forensics, not just to complain and poke fun at the jargon, although let's be honest, there's plenty to complain about and to make fun of. We're here to strip away the euphemisms and translate these nice sounding phrases back into the uncomfortable truth that they actually represent. Because once you see the mask for what it is, you may be able to start reclaiming your own clarity and your own agency. The first way that language is hijacked is through what might be called the procrastination suite. This is a set of phrases that's used whenever someone encounters a problem but lacks either the courage or the competence to solve it. And the goal is never to fix the issue, it's to rename it until it becomes someone else's problem or someone else's crisis. We could start with the classic, let's circle back on that. On the surface, it sounds collaborative. It suggests that we're going to return to the topic at some more opportune time. The reality, though, it's a polite way of saying, I have no idea how to solve this problem or answer this question, so let's ignore it until it becomes something that someone else has to deal with. And then there's, let's take this offline. This is a tactical maneuver, and it's often used by corporate leadership. You'll see a glaring flaw in a plan during a public meeting that they're holding. So you raise your hand bravely, maybe even a little bit foolishly, and you point out the iceberg that's looming up ahead. The manager smiles, they lean in and they say, that's a really great point. Let's take this offline. The translation, please stop pointing out my mistakes in front of an audience. Let's move this to a private space where there's no witnesses. And then what about the sudden, unannounced message or the quick visit to your desk? That's called touching base. It's designed to look like connection, but it functions as a disruption. It's an interruption of your actual work so that a manager or a supervisor can say that they are connected to the frontline workers without actually having to provide anything that'll help you do your job. But then, if the first suite of language is about avoiding reality or procrastinating, the second is a lot more insidious. This is where language is used to mask the physical and psychological exhaustion of the workplace. In this dialect, humans are no longer people. We're resources, and we can be optimized. Your health isn't a key performance indicator, but your bandwidth certainly is. So let's consider that word bandwidth. It's a term that's borrowed from computing, but it's been applied to human cognition. Sounds sterile, right? But when a manager asks if you have the bandwidth for a new project, what they're really asking is, how much more soul-crushing labor can you endure before your mental health reaches complete system failure? And then we have leverage. In physics, leverage allows you to move heavy objects with less effort. In the corporate world, leveraging resources is using existing assets, which almost always means exhausting frontline workers, to squeeze out extra profit without actually increasing the budget or hiring more people. This leads directly into scaling. The corporate mandate to scale is a mathematical impossibility for the individual. It's the demand basically to increase your output by 400% without an equivalent increase in headcount, resources, or time. You can't scale a human being. You can only stretch them until they snap. And you can't forget the preamble when they unveil these plans. My ask is. Now, ask is a verb. They turn it into a noun. In this form, it's rarely a request. It's an assignment. It's almost always outside your job description, and it comes with zero additional compensation. You aren't being asked. You're being told to perform a feat of strength under the guise of polite inquiry. And sometimes they'll tell you to lean in and support the team. This might be the most manipulative phrase in the whole kit. It's a directive to absorb extra responsibilities, take on more stress under the beautiful and hollow guise of professional growth, or taking ownership, or being a team player. And then when things get truly difficult, when budgets are slashed, people get let go, they call it hard trade-offs. That's the process of deciding which essential tools, which vital staff members, or which protocols designed to benefit the workers can be eliminated to protect the quarterly profit margin. In corporate speak, it's not a loss. It's just a trade-off. And then finally, when mass layoffs occur, we use the linguistic magic trick known as rightsizing. It's a way to describe the destruction of livelihoods without using the word firing. It suggests that the company is simply adjusting its weight to be more aerodynamic, rather than acknowledging the human wreckage left in its wake. When we move deeper into this corporate cipher, we find another layer: strategic chaos. This is where companies use the language of innovation to hide an absolute lack of direction. It's the rebranding of instability as agility. We've all heard it. We need to be more agile and responsive. In a lot of cases, agile is just a way of saying we have no long-term plan. If you're agile, it means you're expected to change direction every Tuesday because the leadership team changed their minds over lunch. It rebrands management failure, the inability to predict or to prepare, as an exciting opportunity for flexibility. And when the company fails to anticipate a shift in the industry, they never admit that they messed up. Instead, they say, the market is evolving. This is a euphemism for we got caught off guard, we're now scrambling, and you're going to be working every weekend until we figure out what happened. When leadership finally realizes that their previous strategy was a complete catastrophe, they'll never apologize for it. Instead, what they'll do is announce a paradigm shift. They rebrand this new, confusing direction as something revolutionary, rather than admitting that the old way was fundamentally broken. And to justify the massive upheaval that this is going to cause for people on the front lines, they call these high-risk, poorly planned decisions bold moves. So this brings us to the bureaucracy, the metrics of despair. The language used to manufacture the appearance of progress through pure, unadulterated paperwork. This is where good ideas go to die a slow bureaucratic death in what's called the pipeline. If something's in the pipeline, it's a vague promise of future resources or future solutions that will likely remain in development right up until the heat death of the universe. It allows leadership to acknowledge that a problem exists without ever actually having to fix it. And then there's deliverables. A deliverable is the thing that you'll be staying late on a Friday night to finish because an executive had a sudden burst of information while commiserating with ChatGPT at 4:55 p.m. It's not about value. It's about checking boxes and feeding egos. In high growth environments, you'll see something called the Series C mindset. In essence, this is the frantic, caffeine-fueled desperation to show massive growth. At any cost, doesn't matter what has to be done, we're going to grow and it's going to be intense. And it's all done to satisfy investors. It creates this culture where progress is measured by sheer velocity. Regardless of whether you're driving off a cliff, at least you're going fast. And then, of course, the most pervasive is the pursuit of buy-in. And this isn't about persuasion. It's about manipulation. It's the art of making employees pretend that a terrible idea is brilliant so that leadership can eventually claim everyone agreed when it fails miserably. And finally, we need to take a look at what's probably the most dangerous layer of all. It's the language used to blur professional boundaries and to erode the sense of self. This is the language of culture, and it's where the linguistic mask is at its thickest. If you ever hear a company say, "We're a family," don't walk, run away as far and as fast as you can. In a professional setting, family is a massive red flag. It indicates that boundaries are about to vanish. If we're a family, then loyalty isn't contractual, it's emotional. And if we're a family, you'll be expected to sacrifice your personal life, your sleep, and your mental health for the company because that's what families do. It's often paired with the promise of work hard, play hard. And this is rarely about actual work-life balance. It's a promise of perpetual exhaustion, compensated only by mandatory fun events that take place during your precious free hours. Even the way we collaborate is being rebranded. The goal of breaking down silos sounds collaborative, but it just means ensuring that every department has permission to interrupt your work with a quick question. It's the destruction of focus to put on a performance of connection. Now, it may sound like I'm being really cynical here, and in a lot of ways I am. But understanding these terms isn't just about cynicism. It's about critical thinking, and it's about literacy. The goal of corporate speak is to make the reality of work and labor invisible. If we can rename exhaustion as bandwidth and layoffs as rightsizing, then we can avoid the difficult conversations that are required for meaningful and human-focused problem solving. When we strip away the synergy, the leverage, and the paradigm shifts, we're left with the raw, unvarnished reality of our labor and our lives. We're left with the truth of how much time we spend, how much energy we expend, and what it's actually costing us to participate in these systems. By recognizing these euphemisms, we stop simply reacting to the pivot or to the bold move. We start seeing them for what they are. Choices made by others that affect us deeply. And once you see the mask, you can start asking for the clarity and the respect that you actually deserve. So that's all I have for today. Just talking about corporate speak is completely draining. So thanks for taking some time to watch today, and if you found this helpful, consider subscribing. Take good care. Thanks.
What's expected of you is to shine up your shoes, light up a candle for the tired and the poor, wear a tight grin to cover the sins, the things that you see